Hello everyone, welcome to another Battlebots fight recap video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the fight between Copperhead and Son of Whyachi. As always, with any of these videos, if you have not seen the fights yet, go ahead and watch those first. This will give everything away and completely spoil your whole experience watching the fights. So make sure you go ahead and watch, I think it's episode 14, which is, I think the episode right before the actual competition or the actual tournament starts. So go ahead and watch that first and then come back. Okay, so I'm going to assume everyone has watched this fight, so there will be no spoilers from this point going on. I want to give a little bit of back context for this fight. So at this point in the competition, I guess, previous to this fight, we really honestly thought that Copperhead was out. We were 2-2. There was a lot of other people at 2-2 that maybe had better performances than us during the whole competition. So we kind of thought that we were out at this point. And fun fact, this fight happened kind of unbeknownst to us. We were actually out of the restaurant. We were all celebrating. We had both Zach's and Casey's parents and family there. We were all celebrating. We had just ordered dinner. We had just ordered drinks, and we were doing a toast. Zach gets a call on his cell phone, and he comes back in, and he's just like, we gotta go. So we all grab our stuff, go into the car, go back to the venue. I think we drove back, drove back to the venue. We were pretty close, and they're like, Gigabyte bowed out. I guess Gigabyte couldn't get fixed in time. They were supposed to fight Son of Whyachi. They ended up forfeiting, and so they looked for the next person that was available, and it came down to us. Now, the interesting thing about this was we had just come off our fight with Warhawk, which was good, and we had a 2-2 record. And if you look in the very early part of the fight, or I guess the whole fight, you can see that one whole side rail of the bot is unpainted. We didn't think we were going to get another fight, so we didn't bother painting the bot. We had everything ready to go, but we didn't think we were going to have another fight, so we weren't 100% ready. So we just came back, grabbed the bot, threw the batteries in, put on our Copperhead t-shirts, and got in line. So it was kind of one of those unexpected fights, and of course it's a perfect matchup because they needed someone to fight Son of Whyachi, so who better than essentially Poison Arrow, who unexpectedly knocked out Son of Whyachi a couple of years back. So it was a nice little rematch fight, so it just kind of worked out that way. In terms of strategy or anything like that, we really didn't have any strategy. I think at the time we knew who we were fighting. I think we knew we were going to fight Son of Whyachi, but it was just a matter of, can we get back in time? Can we get changed in time? Can we grab the snake staff and all the other little goodies that we have? And can we get in line in time for production to be happy with it? Because the thing about being on a TV show and being around production is they always have contingency. They always have backup plans. So we very well could have arrived and they're like, oh, sorry, someone else was ready ahead of you. So we just wanted to make sure that we could get back in time to get one more fight. So no real strategy or anything like that. The bot was fully good. We had no issues with the bot whatsoever. The day previous, we thought maybe we'd get another fight, so we did get it in the test arena and figure it out. But if you noticed in the very beginning of the fight, we had a little bit of trouble getting the weapon started up, and same issue that we had pretty much the whole competition. And this was not this bot, which has a slightly different ratio up front. It was the other one, and that one, I guess, is a little bit trickier getting up to speed, and it just, wasn't warmed up or whatever. So it took a few seconds to get up to speed, but other than that, it was a fully functional bot going into this fight. Fighting Son of Whyachi is always interesting because there's a lot of kinetic energy there, and once it gets up to speed, it likes to stay kind of in the middle and drive really slow. They're very cautious, and especially at this point in the competition, there's really no sense to impress the judges. It's just get the win, move on to the next step. So that first big hit that we had, that kind of did us in. Unfortunately, what happened was kind of strange. So we hit, there was an impact, I don't know, our weapon hit their weapon, doesn't really matter too much, and we flew against the wall, they flew backwards. And in that impact, either initially or against the wall, one of our drive ESCs failed. And we learned later that when we opened up the ESC, everything seemed fine inside, and that's why it was kind of this intermittent drive. Like, it kind of worked a little bit halfway through and then died later. All the mechanical of the drive worked perfectly fine. It was just that one ESC, or electronic speed controller. And it turned out that some of the components on the PCB had sheared off. Now, we're not talking about big components. We're talking, I think it was 602 or 805 package size, which if anyone's familiar with this, 0402 is like 4 millimeters by 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters. They're very, very small. Like, I'm making little small signs because they're tiny. They're like, you know, something that fits on the tip of your finger. Those components just sheared off, and it wasn't like they weren't properly soldered. They didn't melt off. It's just that the impact and the force of that first or second hit, either the wall or against Son of Whyachi, was enough that those components just sheared right off. So this wasn't really an issue with brushed or brushless drive. It wasn't anything to do with our previous drive issues that we had had up until this point. It was just that there was so much force that the bot moved away, and the little tiny components, which weigh a fraction of a gram, stayed where they stayed, and they just sheared right off the board. So that was kind of interesting. When we popped out that ESC and opened it up, you could just hear that there was some, you know, skittles inside. So that was interesting, and that's what led to the drive issues that we had in the beginning, and I guess throughout the fight. Throughout the rest of the fight, Zach did a pretty darn good job of trying to keep squared up to them. Their mobility is good, but you know, they still move relatively slowly, and because they're just a weapon all the way around, it's relatively easy to just kind of shift into a right angle. And the first couple times that we encountered them, we actually got some decent hits, and we were all kind of thinking, okay, maybe we've got this. And then they kind of clipped the side of us and threw us against the wall, and, you know, that was kind of it. But some interesting things, you can see this in the final video on the TV show. These little guys came off, and we hadn't seen that happen yet in the competition, but we were kind of waiting for that. But there's a couple times where Son of Whyachi just hit us just right, that these things just completely disintegrated. And I wish I could kind of explain more about how sturdy these things are, but these are actually hardox as well. This whole thing is hardox, and these guys are actually gusseted inside. So there's actually a hole inside this piece where they go inside, and then that whole thing is welded. I mean, they're a pretty integral part of this frame, and they just instantly tore right off. And if you listen really closely, you can kind of hear them tinking along the floor after they get hit. So that was pretty cool. Other than that, no real damage other than the components on the ESC got sheared off. And then when we got slammed up against the wall, we were just kind of wedged in there perfectly. And it actually took them quite a bit of time to pry Copperhead out of that, because the drum kind of dug into the frame of the arena a little bit. And so I don't think we could have put Copperhead in that position if we had tried. It was actually kind of wedged down in between that first set of glass and then the outer glass. So it was pretty cool. It was neat to see a combat robot about, you know, yay high up in the air just wedged into the arena. That was a pretty good hit, and I don't think anyone was really too upset that that happened. So let's talk a little bit about the internet's love affair with talking about exposed wheels. So no big secret, Copperhead has big exposed wheels, and towards the end of this fight, we got a really big hit directly from Son of Whyachi right on the wheel. And you know what happened? Not a whole lot. It took out some of the rubber, and that's pretty much it. The wheels took it like a champ. Son of Whyachi took out a chunk about, you know, that big from one of the wheels, and it just kept on spinning. So for anyone that's thinking that you absolutely 100% have to have wheel guards and protect your wheels at all costs, and exposed wheels are always going to cost you a fight, I'd like you to look back at that fight and look at how Son of Whyachi, one of the biggest, most devastating spinners in the field, went right into one of the wheels, and you saw Copperhead just shudder a little bit. So something to kind of keep in mind. If you have enough rubber and enough wheel mass, those hits really aren't that big of a deal. It just takes out a big chunk of the wheel, and that's about it. So that's it for Copperhead. Our run was done at this point. We had 5 fights total, and we end up with a 2-3 record, which, you know, isn't too amazing, but not that bad considering it's a brand new robot from scratch. I think Battlebots in general has gotten so competitive that it's nearly impossible for a new bot to come in and do really well. There's so much you learn, you know, the components shearing off of the ESC, the temperature sensors in the drive just randomly starting to give false readings. there's so many things that you have to take into consideration. There's so many little details about a bot. So whenever you see a robot go on TV and it just, starts crab walking or doesn't function, give the builder the benefit of the doubt. These are things that you just never saw in testing, and they just show up randomly because this is a very harsh environment and a very difficult environment to build something for. So just give people the benefit of the doubt. A lot of people do spend quite a bit of time in the bots, and something weird just ends up happening. But anyway, that's pretty much it for Copperhead. I guess this is probably going to be the last fight recap video for sure. I might do a couple other videos after this on certain little aspects of the bot, but for me, that's pretty much it for Copperhead for this season. So I am, of course, playing with the Son of Whyachi fidget spinner. Check the link down below in the description to where you can get your own Son of Whyachi fidget spinner. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for this video. So thanks for watching. Thank you everyone for supporting Copperhead the whole run. And a special thanks to our sponsor, Rocky Mountain Waterjet. If you need anything cut, check out Rocky Mountain Waterjet. It's what we used for everything and what I use for all my bots. Check the description for the link down below. And thanks for the support, and see you in the next video.